Forgive me as I go through my notes here. Like I always tell you guys, this is unscripted. I'll do my best to keep it concise and not take up too much of your time on this Friday night, but a lot did happen today and I just wanted to fill everybody in. Michael Bever and his older brother Robert are accused of stabbing their 2 parents and 3 of their siblings to death. There was one surviving sister that was 13 and another surviving sister that was 23 months old at the time. She says she turned to walk out and she heard one of the brothers say, "Should we do it now?" So she says she turned back around and walked back inside and said, "Do what now?" And that's when she says that Michael said, "Hey, come look at this on my computer." So she goes over there, kind of leans over, and while she's leaned over looking at Michael's computer, she says Robert came up behind her and slashed her throat. And then she said she started hearing Daniel screaming. And she said that's when I knew. And the attorney said, "That's when you knew what?" And she said, "That's when I realized what was happening, that they were trying to kill everyone." She said, I could hear, it was obviously a child that called. And again, this was 12-year-old Daniel that made this call. Daniel called. She could tell it was a little boy. She said she could hear an attack in the background. And so she, grabbed somebody who was sitting beside her, another dispatcher, and said, "You need to get people out there now. Something bad is happening." She said, "It sounds like someone's dying in that house." But I'm assuming he heard some kind of scuffling, some kind of screaming. He locked himself in the office and makes this call. So when the call starts, you can kind of hear him almost whispering, saying, "Help, help." And the 911 operator says, "What do you need help with? What's going on?" And Daniel said, "My brother's attacking my family." Then at this point in the call, it got chaotic. At least for me, it was unintelligible. I couldn't really tell what was being said, but there was definitely some scuffling going on. And of course, the 911 operator is saying, "Are you still there? Are you still there? Who's attacking your family? Who is it? What's going on?" And then you can hear another older boy's voice pick up and say, "Hello," and then the line just goes dead. I think it's just shocking for anyone to see, even for this police officer, this crime scene investigator who was there and who helped document it. Christopher was 7 years old, and he was just so small. And in the photo, he's curled into this fetal position, like a protective position, and there's just blood everywhere, and it's just shocking. There were more than 350 photos that they were hoping to show to the jury, and of course over 100 of those were those autopsy photos, but that was still a lot of crime scene pictures that they were hoping to show the jury, and the judge has removed dozens of those at this point. Another frequently asked question that I get is Michael going to testify in his own defense, and why or why would he not do that? He can, but he also does not have to. So something that I think a lot of people don't know about the court process is, and this is probably something you guys actually all do know, everyone's heard the phrase innocent until proven guilty. What a lot of people don't know is that it is on the prosecution. They have the burden of proof to prove that Michael is not innocent, to prove that he is guilty. That is completely on them. So if Michael's defense attorneys wanted to get up there and not present a case at all and just let the prosecution do their thing and then pretty much send the jurors back after that, they can do that. They don't have to do anything. I do expect them to present a defense in this case, and we've been seeing some of that unfolding even over the last couple weeks, like the angles that they're going to take. But Michael does not have to testify in his own defense, and the jury has been explicitly instructed not to take that into consideration if he decides not to. So they've been told, if he does not testify in his own defense, you cannot hold that against him because he doesn't have to do it. He said as far as the baby, so the baby was 23 months old when all of this happened. And he said that Michael and the older surviving sister, who was 13 at the time, looked after the baby a lot. And because the mom would, close herself in an office all the time, or she'd go outside to smoke. This is what Robert's saying. But he said that Michael was really loving and really caring to the baby. And at this point, I kind of looked over at Michael, and he was really starting to cry at this point. And then Robert said, that day before I committed the murders, and I specifically noted that he said before I committed the murders, Michael told me that he wanted to spend all day with the baby. And later he talked about it again and said that during the day leading up to that, Robert had actually taken the surviving sister, Christopher and Victoria, I believe, to their bowling league. I didn't get the impression he participated in it, but he kind of chaperoned them there. And he said that he had kind of asked Michael what Michael might want to do during the day, and he said that all he wanted to do was sit at home and hold the baby, because he knew they had talked about it. They had planned this day. This is the day they were going to do it. So Michael knew that it was happening that day. And also Robert admitted that there was a plan to kill the baby too. And so Michael said that he wanted to spend the day holding her. He talked about David, the father, installing security cameras to look into their bedrooms and all of the hallways. And he told a story. He said that David could watch them from his cell phone. And he told a story that David, I guess, had said to him, you know, I saw you get up in the night last night to get a drink of water. And Robert said, I kind of laughed. And he's kind of laughing when telling this story and said, well, that was good timing. And then he said, his dad said, no, I was watching you. And he laughed, and he was like, and I kind of told him, you know, that's really ominous. And he was laughing when telling the story and really seemed, you know, I don't know if lighthearted is the word that I would describe, but, you know, he's telling these stories about his family and kind of laughing a little bit. And the jury has found Michael Bever guilty on all counts, guilty for the murders of David Bever, April Bever, Daniel Bever, Christopher Bever, and Victoria Bever. They also found him guilty of assault and battery with intent to kill for the surviving sister, who was 13 years old at the time. They decided to give Michael Bever 5 life sentences with the possibility of parole. They had to find that he was irreparably corrupt and permanently incorrigible. That's based on a Court of Criminal Appeals decision that had come down yesterday, saying that the state would have to prove to the jury beyond a reasonable doubt, basically, that Michael Bever or any juvenile defendant is not able to be rehabilitated. So the jury came back today and said that they do believe that he could be rehabilitated and that he's not irreparably corrupt, he's not permanently incorrigible. So the jury gave Michael 5 life sentences with the possibility of parole. Now, what I want to express to you guys is that we don't know yet if these are going to be run consecutively or concurrently. Concurrently means that they'd all be run at the same time, and he would be eligible for parole in about 38 years, a little bit more than 38 years. But if the judge decides to run them consecutively, then he will get 45 years back to